excited to know that I was a part of this larger collective of people who have gone through so many different experiences and how they reacted to their experiences and their approach to recovery and overcoming what they've gone through, and how many different ways there are to recover and to get through and to rise above. That it's, one size doesn't fit all. And here's an opportunity to read this book where, okay, if this story doesn't resonate with me or this solution doesn't resonate with me, there's all these others that I can check out in this book. And chances are you're going to find something that will speak to you. And I'm just really excited to be a part of this project. And I really appreciate you inviting me to take part in it.
It was scary. It was vulnerable. It's hard to distill everything that you want to say into a chapter. The program has been great. The Realize Foundation has been wonderful. The editors have been delightfully kind and really patient with us as we work to put our thoughts into words. The whole process has been overwhelmingly positive. I've met amazing people. Excuse me. I've met just fantastic people sharing like-minded stories. And like Dina said, it just reminds you that regardless of what you do and where you come from, a lot of us have similar stories, and it makes it that much easier to feel and to reach out for support from those stories.
Wow. So writing, so I'd never written anything before outside of writing for business, writing in general for, stuff that you have to write, emails and things. So writing a story about myself was not easy. I will say that it was quite a journey.
I've loved being a part of this. Frankly, I'm honored that you asked me to be a part of it. I've gotten to know many of the authors, at least a little bit. Certainly know Dina pretty well. And I'm humbled to be in this book because the kinds of traumas and difficult times that many others in the book had are far more life-threatening than mine was. There were times when I got close to wondering, not because it really spent any time in my mind, but the thought of suicide passed my mind. It's done more than pass the mind of many of the people who've authored these chapters. And the incredible thing is it didn't stop them. Obviously, it did not happen, but they've learned to grow in a variety of different ways from that experience and to pull themselves out of it. Many speak of still having difficult times and it's a day by day, but they're here, thank God, and they're able to express their perseverance, their willingness to look those kinds of traumas in the eye and say, no, not for me. There's a lesson in every one of these chapters that we all need to pay attention to. And I frankly am as excited about having the opportunity to read fully all of the other chapters as I am about being pleased to be able to share mine. I think mine offers a life lesson as well, and I presume that's why I'm a part of this. But it's been, so far, one of the best experiences ever. And Dina, I thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
It was new for me. I've done a lot of podcasts. I've done radio shows. I've done different things, which is in my description, but I've never really written down what was going on. So to me, and Dina knows this, when we first started the project, I'm like, oh, it's just going to take me a few seconds. No big deal. I mean, I already know my story. And then when I actually started typing or put pen to paper, as they say, all of a sudden it just made me really go back and reflect a little bit deeper. I had that time and the pauses in between, and I'm just going, I want to describe this a little bit more. And then because I'm not a writer, all of a sudden I'm crossing things out, rewriting things. So it took me a lot longer than I ever anticipated. And again, even when I speak when I do my videos and I speak and I do all these other things, it doesn't take long, just a few minutes, and I go in and I hash it and then I'm out. When I'm writing this, I have to really think a long time on it. It takes a while, and now I'm rehashing all these emotions, and really now I'm in this area. And it really makes me go deeper doing it. So I'm very thankful for doing that, being a part of this project, because it really pushed me a little bit more. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy for me each time to share my story. People see me and they go, "Oh, it's so easy for you." It's still difficult. I'm sharing my innermost thoughts, my deepest emotions, my most vulnerable times in my life with people. And no matter how many times I've done that, it's difficult each time, and it takes me out of my comfort zone, and it pushes me further and further. And so again, I'm very thankful for a project like this to make me come out of my comfort zone and push me further on this. And I know with the other stories that I've read on here, I'm just excited, and I know that this is going to change some lives. And I'm really hoping that when you hear this message, even if you're not going through something, if you know somebody that is, please get this book in their hands, because there's a lot of people with very, very amazing stories that will change a lot of lives. So very cool.
It was a challenge for me because my role in the world is very much expert in visual thinking and teacher. And I kind of joke that, I'm very systematic and very thinky. So, trying to be more feely was a challenge, especially in writing, because, I'm more than happy to tell you, the ridiculous textbook stories of my upbringing. But when it came to writing it down and publishing it, and making it something that was cohesive and useful and, it has that heart in it, was a challenge. It was definitely a different role for me, but I'm very, very happy for the opportunity.
I want to thank Dina and Demi for this opportunity, even though I had no idea what kind of impact it was going to have on my life. And I really and truly hope somebody somewhere out there does benefit from my chapter in this book. And like James said, it was scary. Very scary, and I felt like I was bearing some of my private moments to the world, and that part really was a little uncomfortable.
Things that I ended up writing were, like I said, things I never ever expected to share. And once it's down on paper and you're reading it out loud and checking the edits, and it was like a lot of times these things would come up because you're digging, you're looking at the past. And I will say I'm incredibly thankful that at this point in my life, I have tools at my disposal, like EFT or emotional freedom technique and that kind of thing, to manage and clear the heavy emotions that did come up, And it's not maybe even justified for the moment, but things that happen when you're a kid might carry a little package of shame along with it, or a little package of anger along with it. And in those moments going through this process, I was clearing and processing old stuff, that maybe had slipped through the cracks that I didn't realize. And in the moment where you sit back, and I'm probably speaking for everybody here too, going, nobody's going to believe this.
But I think this book is so timely. I really, really do. There is so much struggle going on in the world right now. I think the isolation, the stresses, everything that's happened over the last 2 years has really pushed a lot of people to the brink. There's been so much loss. So to have a guide and to hear other people's stories that we can relate to is, I think, absolutely invaluable.
But it's because people are so vulnerable and authentic in telling that they're telling things that are very personal and very not something people share at a cocktail party. Like they're talking to you heart to heart about what they've been through. And it is in order to help someone else in the same situation understand that they're not alone, which is what you said. There's our whole purpose. Because when people feel alone, they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel they matter, they don't feel enough, they don't feel worthy. And that's where suicide comes from.
Just what you said, community, connection, and story. And if I could add a nuance, unraveling our stories, even the desire to take one's life at some level is a desire to kill off the story that we're stuck in.
As a matter of fact, I was led to your Scars to Stars event, and by doing so, it gave me the courage to actually become one of your speakers and share my story. And then, every time you share your story in a secure setting, what happens? Your shame goes away, and you're more willing to be vulnerable because we're around people who are just like you. You know, they might not have the exact same story, but what happens is you relate to each other, and you become a community, and you back each other up. So when this event, or the book event, came to be, I was excited because I knew the exact story that had to be told. One that surprised even myself, and having been somebody who's been in therapy for probably 30 years of my life, I think I became kind of complacent, thinking, well, I am cured. Well, after this event, it made me realize that I really didn't deal with everything. Okay, I had to go back and revisit those dark moments after the event happened. So,
I'm not much of a writer. But it was pretty incredible to have gotten started. I've told this story so many times to get this organization going, and to put it on paper and to really just be able to pour my direct experience into it. Being able to share that with people, I'm really hoping is not only shows the people that I'm talking about in the book, but or in my section, what they meant and what they're capable of, but also anybody reading, that these are just normal people that just decided to, take that extra step, take the plunge into the unknown, and then do something that they just knew and felt was right, and hoping that that again just reaches more people, ignites more stars.
Using our scars to help other people is something that, is unique to each one of us. And it's also a gift that we've been given that can help other people overcome something similar. And it's just when you can finally get to a point where you're healed enough to realize that it's a gift and what to do with it. It's like, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that feeling, but it's like you go from what Lisa said, like from why me to what's next, like focusing on what's next, focusing on the solutions and how do I get to the next level and what do I do? And for me, helping other people is what helps me.
Well, for me, part of it is, as you know, as I was writing it, reliving it was a very interesting, and at the same time it had empowered me again, because reliving it and rewriting and going through those emotions as I was writing it had allowed me to discover too that how much I overcame, and all the people who had supported me as well.
I think what was so special is I was able to kind of just record myself saying my story and then go back through and edit it. Right? Once you have a transcription of your raw words and that speaking style of hearing yourself in your own tone, really let the words flow out, it's cathartic. It releases something that you didn't know could feel so good because it's always felt maybe so raw. And when you can actually, when we had the first PDF copy delivered to me and I got to see that, it is really special to scroll along that index and see your name, but then also then flip to your page and see that your words are going to be read by so many other people, and even just one impacted by them matters. And this just made it real.
After being silent for 23 years about my own attempt, the only thing that made me talk about it was community and connection, and knowing that people weren't going to judge me and they had been in a similar place. And that is what changes it. I would have never in a million years called a hotline. That's just me. I would not have done it. I didn't go to therapy for 25 years either. So, there are people who need a different avenue. And even the people who who do use those resources and tools, I still think connection and community can change their life, like long term. And that's why we're all here.
I'm not gonna lie, it's way outside of my comfort zone. But I've been so thankful for you creating this space for this project. I'm so excited about it. Personally, I'm also on a mission and have been for probably my whole life, but even more so in the last couple of years, of finding my own voice, like really claiming my own voice and my place as a storyteller, because stories are so powerful. Stories connect and stories heal. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about your project. Is it's like, unless we start talking about the hard stuff, about the places where we feel our challenges, our shame, our fears, like unless we sort of bring the light into that, it's because it's like that allows others to see themselves in our stories. Because the thing that it's easy to feel like we're all alone, or it's easy often to feel like this is, only happening to me, or it's special to me. But as soon as I ever talk to anybody else, even if we look so different on the outside, like we're more similar than different.
It was scary. I had to go back into some memories and feelings, and it was hard. I mean, I probably rewrote this 4, 5, 6 times, and it's still getting edited, so I think a lot of it is hard to share, because for people who are in those situations that don't feel really good, what kind of holds you back from sharing your story is criticism. Like, are people ready to gaslight you, like, what is your reality? Like, how could you feel that way? And it's like, it's really hard, because it's like, provide a lot of context. Do I not? This is going to be out in the world, like, permanently. What will this look like in the future? Will this hurt me? And that's where we're coming from, is that are we going to get hurt from sharing our story? So a lot of crying. Actually, I might even cry now just even thinking about it, because it's hard stuff. But I really do hope that, everybody gets to read everybody's stories and, be able to take pieces from there and just know that suicide is not the way to go. But, however you're feeling, how low you feel, even though we might not be having the same experiences, those feelings are the same, being worried, being angry, being doubtful. And I really do hope that you can bring some people in that have really been affected by this, and have us hear their story too from reading our stories. I think that would be so neat to see in full circle.
When I wrote the chapter for the book, the editor wrote me back, Demi. She wrote me back and said, "Can you put in a little bit more detail in this particular section here?" So, and what that section was really about when the police officer showed up at our house to give us the death notification.
I don't feel like I've ever been part of something that's been so harmonious and inclusive, and you've just held such a very loving and encouraging space for everybody, and that's really, really special. I feel like it's lifted each of us up, to do the best that we can. So, and as you say, I mean, the group, we each have such different stories to share, don't we? And it's been really wonderful to connect. We have had a few Zoom calls and to connect with these other people and hear their stories, and to support each other, lift each other up. And then I think for me, personally, I've spoken about my story a fair amount, but I haven't really written and shared. I've written for myself, but I haven't, put it out. And it feels, in some ways more permanent, there's something more significant about the written word.
And speaking and writing are very different things. And for me, speaking comes very easily, but writing takes me a lot more time and effort and energy. And doing this chapter was really really challenging for me to just to sit down and like actually put it all on paper, but in many ways there's some really emotional pieces in it that are still for me very 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 raw, even if they're not as close to the surface. There's time has passed since some things happened, and so it was actually surprisingly emotional for me.
I think that part is true for everyone involved. Is some of them have written books, whole books by themselves, and some of them have never written anything for public consumption. And I think we've all had a similar journey because it's such personal stories. We can always write things that are maybe fiction or maybe business stuff or maybe other things, but when you're talking about these stories that are in this book, they're very very personal, and sometimes they're hard for us to write because we still need to process some of that. And then sometimes it's hard for us to write because we are struggling with saying it in the right way, or because we don't know if we're ready to put it out to the world. All of those things combined. Like when I started the foundation on our website, we have always had a place where people could share their story with us. And we haven't really promoted it a lot, but I think after this book launches, we're going to promote that more, because sharing your story is healing. And it's not just sharing it with the world, but it's processing it for yourself. Even if you write something and you never share it, it still helps you heal from whatever trauma you've been through. And I had people tell me for years, you should just journal. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't think that will help me. I don't have time for that. But when the pandemic happened and I started writing down my thoughts, it absolutely helped me.